Hi, welcome to Ladies of Another View. I'm Beck. We have a very full day of guests today. First up, we have Coach Rod Miller, and later on in the program, we're going to have sociologist Mary Eberstadt, who's going to talk to us about identity politics and where did that all come from. Joining me today, I have Carmen, and as usual, Mary. And there on the end, somebody who's not one of the ladies, Coach Rod Miller, who has been so gracious and brave to join us on the show today. He's actually the coach of the Bismarck Bucks Indoor Football League. And I've been to some of those games. They are a lot of fun. And we're going to talk to him. If you're a lady, don't leave. I think we're going to make it interesting because I don't really like football, but I think I have some questions I really want to know about the coach. And we're going to get off of football too. So first of all, what brings you to Bismarck?
Well, I came here to, be the coach of the football team. I just had got back from China, and I was at home and debating with my next move, but I was going to take some time off. And at the time, that's when the team was going through a league change and ownership change. And so the guy that was helping them at the time to find a new staff, a new coach, contacted me. So, and I always say that I got tricked a little bit because during the conversation, he was in the car with the owner, with the president, Mr. Derrick. And he called me and asked me about coming to Bismarck. I'm like, nah, that's a little too far, a little too cold. I said, I love seafood anyway, so there's no seafood there. If there's no lobster, I'm not coming. So they were literally sitting at the light in front of Red Lobster, and they took a picture and sent it to me right away. And they said, well, does this answer your question? So from there, I was like, okay, at least got to come visit. So, I came here and had a good visit, and things went well, and now I'm here. So I'm enjoying every second of it.
So the cold weather didn't scare you off. No. And I wanted to say you played football in college.
Yes.
And so it was a natural, you wanted to be a coach.
Right.
But tell us some of the places you've been, and then after you've mentioned some of the cities, I want to know what the heck you were doing in China. And I didn't even know they played football there, but what do I know?
Right.
Well, let's see. It's been a long road, so I've been so many different places. I've been to, Kansas City, Missouri. I've been to Des Moines, Iowa. I've been to Indianola, Iowa. I've been to Tyler, Texas, been to Laredo, Texas, Frankfort, Kentucky, Kansas City, Missouri, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Frankfort, Kentucky. Let's see here, Green Bay, Wisconsin. I think that's about it right now.
So this is not a job. If you like to stay in one place, this is not the job.
No.
But how did you end up in China, and what's up with China and football? I
was fortunate to get to China. When I was coaching the Arena Football League in Philadelphia, one of the owners of Philadelphia, Marty Judge, he's been doing business over in China for over 25 years. So he had the idea of trying to bring American football over to China. So he'd been working on this for like 12, 13 years. And happened to be the time I was there that they finally got an approval, because everything goes through the government. So the government gave them approval to put football and bring football over to China. So we went over there to be the first group to bring American football to China. I visited there 3 times. We did a couple clinics. We did open tryouts. We did some things to teach people football in China. So we had a successful season. We're supposed to go back the next season, but then some things happened. And so they've kind of put it on hold for a minute. Then naturally, everything else took over now with different things and the COVID. And actually, it's funny because I was supposed to go back last year for a little bit for a training we're going to do over in Wuhan, China. But fortunately, I did not go because I was in the midst of doing things here. So I told Derrick I wasn't going to go. I was just going to stay here. And it's fortunate that I didn't. Things happen for a reason. So,
wow.
So I have a question.
Yes,
a lot of times, American athletes go overseas to play on different minor league sports or whatever. But
Yes.
what you're saying is you were over there to start it for the Chinese population, right? So there would be no Americans going over there to play. It was a Chinese team.
Well, we start off with Americans. We had to teach. So in arena football, it's 8-on-8.
Oh, okay.
But the rule we had over there, it was 4-on-4. You had to have 4 Chinese and 4 Americans on the field at the same time.
Oh, okay.
But eventually, the 3-year plan was to fade it out so that each team was mostly Chinese, that you basically have 6 Chinese players and 2 American or national players on the roster. So that was the plan to build it up so there would be a fully functioning league of their own. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
That makes sense.
So do they have it in place then? Because I know here they talk about the importance of having your elementary kids really involved in, if it's going to be football, well, any sport, because by the time they hit high school and if they want to, you know, go into college football and stuff, they need that training early on. Do they have that in place?
Right.
In China?
See, in China, it was a little bit different because in China, and people understand, when you go to school in China, basically, when you play a sport, they tell you which sport you're going to play. So when we brought football, they brought football to China, basically what they did was they went to the universities, okay, you're going to play football, you're going to play football, you're going to play football. So they start at university. Over there, kids start from, they are groomed for that sport. So if you were in boxing or if you were in track, you started elementary school at a track-based education. So you went from elementary, middle school, high school, college was all educational based from the sport that you're going to play.
Wow, from grade school
From grade
on?
school, yes.
And you didn't get to say, no, I would rather play basketball. That was, no.
No, you know, China's a different country, and that's why we'll talk about that later, why I think people don't realize how blessed we are here, even with everything going on, because you get there and you see different things that open your eyes.
Right.
But that is one. They really tell you what you're going to do, you know, at that point. But they were trying to, that thing was they wanted to try to toughen up some of the culture in China, and that was another reason about football as well.
Oh,
Interesting.
wow. Yeah, no kidding.
Really interesting. And you mentioned that indoor football is different from when you're playing outdoors and in a regular field. What's the differences?
You know, some of the differences, first of all, the players you have 8 players instead of 11. And then, of course, the size of the field, because we play on an indoor hockey rink. So basically, you can have 4 arena fields fit onto 1 outdoor field. So, you know, and the speed of the game is what a lot of people enjoy. Because you see sometimes you watch football games and you get a 7-3 score or a 10-3. It gets kind of boring, you know. This game is fast-paced. There's always something going on. You'll have scores that are 60-something or 40-something.
Oh, my gosh.
So it's always fast-paced in action, you know, and kids love it. And I know you kind of talked about this before we got started, but women actually love arena football because it's exciting. You get there on some of the biggest parties and events that I've had throughout my years where, you know, women's night out and they'll have their own little group and they're cheering and, you know, have a couple of drinks. They're having a good time. And that's what it's about, having a good time from everybody, from kids up to adults. And that's what arena football is about. And that's why we want people to come see us and enjoy it because it's a good thing to offer.
That's what I think. It's fun. It's up close and personal. And it's easier to pay attention if you're not real in the know about football. You can actually see what's going on and you don't get lost as easily. You have 2 daughters, right?
Yes, I do.
How old are they and do they like football?
They love football. My oldest is, well, she's 20. She will be 20 in 2 weeks, so I better tell her 20 because she's been telling me she's 20 for a month now. And then my youngest is 16, and my youngest is here with me. She lives here. She goes to Legacy High School. And then my oldest goes to the University of Nebraska. So, but
Go Big Red.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. In some sports, let me pause that. No, just kidding. But actually, my oldest, she does some stuff for the team as well with our social media stuff. So she helps out, and she loves doing that. I love having her, you know, involved because, like I said, you know, she's my baby. So when she started, she was scared of the mascot when she was a baby. Now she's working for the team. So it's kind of an accomplishment, and it makes you feel good watching your daughter go from, you know, that age to helping out the team. So that's a very good thing for me.
And how could they not like football? You played football, so I bet they're somewhat athletic. And they like sports in general?
Yeah, they like sports. They play basketball and volleyball and track. And then my oldest, she actually played sports, but when she got to her sophomore year, she wanted to put her focus on academics. So, you know, she asked me, you know, that's what I want to do. I said, baby, do it. You know, so you can earn scholarships. If that's what you want to do, I'll support you whatever you want to do. So she earned a full ride scholarship to college. She had multiple offers. She got multiple scholarships. So I told her that's makes her proud of anything else. You know, she got National Honor Society, so she earned a high school letter from doing that. So I told her, you accomplished more than people that even play football or basketball or track do. So I'm very proud of what she's doing. And my youngest, she's on the same track as well. So
good for her. Well, we're going to talk some more. We're going to talk about more than just football when we come back with Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Hi, I'm Dennis Hogan, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Four Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Four Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Four Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Heroes and Icons is now Cozy TV. Don't worry, you'll still get your favorite Beck News programming without changing the channel. Real people, real news, Beck News.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Back. We are here with Coach Rod Miller. He's the coach of the Bucks indoor football team. And we've been talking about football. We want to talk about a few other things right now because Rod has lived in a lot of different cities, including China. And Bismarck has a real low minority population. Have you ever lived in a city with such a low population of minorities?
Yeah, there's been a couple cities that are like that. I mean, even when I lived in Laredo, Texas, I mean, minority, Caucasians were minority. It was more of a Hispanic community, but it was one of the best learning experiences that I've ever had in my life because a lot of times people get into stereotypes and what you may think. And actually being there and living there was the first time you really see mayors, bank presidents, there are a lot of multi-millionaires in Laredo, Texas, just because of the oil industry. But you wouldn't know that because you always see the typical, but that was one of the most productive cities that I've been in, but it just goes against the stereotype, So I've been a lot of different places. When you go to China, everybody in China is a minority because you don't look like them. You're totally different. And to be in China, that's not one of those places you can just go buy a ticket and go. The government has to literally allow you to go in there to approve your passport. So when you go there, everybody's looking at you because they're amazed because all they see is what's on TV. So everybody over there is a movie star or a rock star. So, I mean, it's just one of those things you get used to because you can just walk down the street and somebody have their camera and they won't even say anything to you. They'll just walk up to you and just take a selfie and they'll come to you, take a selfie and move away. So, I mean, but it's just understanding the environment, understanding the situation that you're in. And that deals with a lot of different things. If you understand where you're at, understand the culture, that's how you adapt and that's how you listen and learn and that's how you get rid of problems.
It's funny you mentioned that about China because I have a nephew, kind of a sandy blonde hair, blue eyes, and he went to China.
Right.
And it was the same thing.
Yep.
It's like, can I take a selfie? And it's like, people are secretly taking
Yep.
pictures. He's not super tall by any stretch, but he's taller than they are.
Right, right.
So it's funny how that happens.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, I was realizing that was kind of a silly question. Have you lived in cities with a low minority? Obviously, China.
right.
China, so I suppose everywhere you are, you're kind of on. Right. But we talked, we had a conversation earlier before we did planned on doing the show. And I thought, well, I think it's interesting given the world the way it is, that a lot of us are uncomfortable now with race relations, whereas before we didn't even think about it or talk about it. It almost seems like we took a step backward. And I love what you talked about, how sports helps some of that fall away.
It does, because we were having a conversation, and sports is something that people seem to get relaxed to. And you can be, we talked about this, you can be the most biased, racist, prejudiced person if you want to, if you are. But when you go to a sporting event, when you walk in there and we're cheering for the same team, you don't see that. People, if a team scores a touchdown, people stand next to each other and they'll high five and shake and they'll be happy and cheer. Then when the game is over and they go to separate ways, and that's when the thought comes back to you. And I'm saying that sports is a way that you can unify. And I remember back when the George Floyd situation happened and a lot of tension were going on. And my players were asking me, Coach, what do you think about it? And I made a statement about life being a huddle. And if America could just be like a huddle of football. And when you're in a football huddle, when you have those 11 guys, or in this game, 8 guys, but when you're in a huddle, you don't see color. You have people of different races, nationalities, religions, sexual preferences. You don't see that. All you see is the 11 eyes or the 8 eyes looking back at you, ready to do a cause because you got one goal, and the goal is to be successful. So you go out there and you execute and you try to be successful. And if that play is not successful, after every play, you come back to the huddle. And what do? You look each other in the eye, you figure out what's going on, and you try to make it better. And then when your quarterback comes to the huddle with the new play, you listen with the players. Everybody's quiet, nobody's talking, you listen. You listen what the new play is, you understand what your role in that play is, and then you break the huddle and you try to make the next play successful. You don't dwell on the last play. But that was not successful, so you make the next play better. And with that being said, that's how you have to interact. But when saying that, is that outside the huddle, you have coaches on the sideline. So, and I'll tell my players, it was to the fact that I'll tell them, you guys are different. Your generation is different. It's really not their generation. It's our generation, the generation that's older, that are stuck in ways, and not this younger generation is trying to be progressive. But we're the outside holding them back. So as a coach in that huddle, you have coaches on the sideline that are different ages. Some coaches are older, younger. Same thing, different races, religions, grew up different places apart of the country, but they are on the sideline supporting the guys in that huddle 100%. And they are wanting that group and on field to be successful. And the respect goes outside the huddle, from the outside huddle to the huddle. And that's what sports is about. And I think that's the problem with society right now, is that we're not working together. And everybody sees everybody as different. Yes, your skin tone may be different, but the inside is the same. And people have to understand. I think if we start treating that as a sports huddle, I think we can start getting past, or at least starting to get better, because relations has taken a step back. And it's for various reasons, but bottom line is, it's happened. We can't dwell on why it happened. We got to figure out how to make it get better.
Right.
That's a great analogy. It really is.
Yeah, it really is. And what I heard you say, it seems like, and I've thought about this a lot too, and your common goal. I mean, that's what unites us, is a common goal. And even as a small community or a large community or a whole country, what's our common goal? Do we have one? And I think that's where it starts to fall apart, because there's not a clear definition of what do we want? Where do we want this to go?
Right, and I totally agree. I mean, when I remember being younger and you watched the Olympics, you see everything else. I mean, the American pride was strong. Just watching how things were, and America was so much respected and feared, and just because but like you said, over time things have just evolved, and the inside has crumbled. The foundation of us that are here, and we let other people influence us. And I hate to say it, but some of the politicians, they play a big role in that as well, because sometimes it doesn't seem like it's about us. It's about them bickering because you're on one side or the other. But you were elected to represent us, and I don't think they represent us sometimes. It's more of a personal ego for them as compared of representing the people that you were hired to represent. Excuse me, not hired, but elected to represent.
Yeah, because I felt like we were going in a good direction, and I have a mixed race family. I have relatives that have, different races, and I thought we were going in a good direction, and all of a sudden, we need a huddle, right? Isn't that what we need to do? We need to. You could do the speaker circuit, Coach Miller, and show us how to do the huddle before we start work in the morning and before we go to school in the morning. What are some of the things you say? You shared with us some of the writing and some of the ideas, and what do you say to your team?
Well, I always teach our guys that it's more than just football to me. It's more than just being a coach. And I feel as a coach, we have responsibilities to to make sure we help teach our young men to be better men, better fathers, better gentlemen. So, we go over different things sometimes in practice, and we'll talk about different situations. Make sure you're being responsible. Make sure, if you have children, taking care of your kids. Make sure your family is important. Just doing things the old-fashioned way. And like I said, when we go to restaurants or we go eat, we have a hat, rule, no hats at the table. Because that's just a respectful thing. Not to everybody. Just if you have an old family or you got people that lived in the South or old grandma, you own one rule, grandma's rule. That was it. Grandma said, if you have to ask yourself if it's right or wrong, you already know it's wrong, for one. Two, ask yourself, what will my grandma say? And if you think she's going to say something, you already know that it's wrong.
Don't mess with grandma.
And that was one of the things, you couldn't sit at your grandma's table and eat dinner and have your hat on, you throw something at you and somebody give you that look, and that look said 1,000 words. So, just little things like that, we teach our guys to be better men.
Thank you so much for coming today. I feel like we could have talked a lot more, but I want you to tell people, what do they need to do to get tickets to see the Bucks, and when does the season start?
Well, our first game is Good Friday, April the 2nd, here in Bismarck against the Massachusetts Pirates. Tickets will be going on sale here very shortly, and if you just check to our website, bismarckbucks.com, any of the social media sites, the Twitter and all that. I'm not a social media guy, I must admit, but if you go to Twitter and Facebook and with Snapchat, all the other stuff they use, it's listed on there as well. So you can find that information. As you see, I'm an old school coach. I don't get and they get on me about all the time. And so I tell them that's why they were hired. That's their job. That's mine. So, but no, seriously though. But if you go there, we'll have stuff posted. We got some good things coming out here for the kids as well. So be looking out for that.
So I think we need to go all the hosts.
We will.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank
you for having me.
We'll be right back after these messages with Ladies of Another View on Back.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. Every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Back. We only have 3 chairs filled right now, but we're going to have Andrea joining us from Florida, and she's done that before. She will be popping in on Zoom to join us for this segment with Mary Eberstadt. I'm really excited about having her on because I've been a fan of many of her books. She is an author, and she's an American writer and a senior fellow at Faith and Reason Institute in Washington, D.C. Her latest book is Primal Screams, about how the sexual revolution has driven identity politics. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Thank you, Patty. It's a delight to be here.
Oh, it's an honor to have you here. I really am a fan of your books. One of my favorite ones, because it was so funny, was The Loser Letters. It's a comic tale of life and death and atheism. It was so clever. If you've ever read C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters, it's kind of that idea, but it's a young woman who's in a treatment center, and she's following the Brights, right? She's all excited about atheism, and so everything's kind of tongue-in-cheek, very, very clever, very creative. But today we have you here to talk about identity politics. Can you tell us what that is?
Well, I think we've seen some pretty good examples of that in the last few months. We've seen a lot of young Americans pour into the streets. We've seen people identify with these online mobs. And this isn't just a right-wing thing or a left-wing thing. I think if we take a step back, Patty, what we see is that a lot of people, especially younger people, are desperate to answer the question, who am I? And that's where identity politics comes in. It used to be that there were ways of answering that question by resorting to, say, your family. If you ask me, who am I would say, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a cousin. Or for religious believers, you would answer by saying, I'm a child of God. So these are 2 very traditional ways of answering the question about identity. And what we have to understand is that because of radical social changes since the 1960s, more and more people can't resort to family. Families are broken, families are smaller, and more people also can't resort to answering that question in religious terms. Younger people are being brought up, in many cases, with no organized faith. So I think this frantic flight to these political identitarian groups or identitarian groups based on gender, based on ethnicity, I think this is all about the loss that our society has suffered through the decline of faith and the decline of the family.
And you think that started in the 60s, you said, correct?
Well, beginning in the 1960s, when the sexual revolution takes hold, we see several trends at once that are happening at the same time and in the same direction. These would include family breakup, abortion, which also shrinks the natural family, fatherless homes, etc. And what we have to realize is that this is happening across American culture, Patty. This isn't, a specifically Black thing or white thing or ethnic thing. These trends have affected everybody. These trends have affected every American family. So again, when I hear people in the streets screaming about identity politics and screaming that they are victims, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think a lot of people are victims of these social trends. They just don't identify the culprit in quite the right way.
Right. You know, I did a little research on having you on, and I'm fascinated with your work, and I want to read more of your books. But you talked about, with the introduction of the pill, and how that changed our society in so many ways that were probably unintended consequences at the time, maybe, by the way that it was sold to us. But can you just describe that a little bit, how that affected and how that contributed to what we're seeing?
Yes, sure. It was a game changer. and in a way that people could not possibly have understood. You know, I imagine back in the early 60s when all of this started, when contraception was destigmatized and widely accepted, a lot of people thought that this would change the world for the better. They thought that it would give women freedom, that it would strengthen marriage for people to have more control over these things. And so I think the people back then can be forgiven for believing that this was a good thing for humanity. But I think the record since then has been quite otherwise. Instead of strengthening marriages, contraception made it possible for people to go for partner after partner, essentially to people shop, which undermines marriage. And also the widespread embrace of contraception flooded the marketplace with available sexual partners. And that also didn't have a very beneficial effect on marriage or on relationships. You know, it's really interesting. These things that were supposed to liberate people turn out to have quite a dark side. And one of the studies that I am still amazed by, which came out several years ago, about female happiness, showed that women's happiness has been declining in every Western country over the last 30 years. Now, that's an amazing thing. Let that sink in. If the pill and all the other liberations of the 60s were supposed to benefit women, then how would it be that their happiness is declining? And I think the answer is because it has made it harder than ever before to make a commitment, a lifelong commitment to a single partner. And that, again, is something that society is suffering from that isn't usually identified in the right way, but it's real.
Right. You know, I see a lot of that on, you know, when you watch TV, things that we weren't allowed to see when we were in our early teens. Today, it's just absolutely normal. There's so much sex on TV, and I know they say sex sells, but it's ruining our kids. You know, they don't, having a sexual relationship is nothing anymore, because it's normalized on TV, I guess. That part's really frustrating for the younger generation.
Yeah, and agree completely. And it's why I'm so happy to be on a women's show, because I keep coming back to the point that these things haven't been good for women. You know, the kind of pornography that is imbibed all over the country by a lot of men is terrible for women. And there's been a lot of research on this, especially lately, showing that that's so. So again, we need to go to the sources of authentic happiness and to understand what the obstacles are to authentic happiness in our lives, especially since the revolutions of the 1960s.
Well, and if I could interrupt one more time, I was so frustrated a couple years ago when they had that big march in Washington, D.C., and they dressed as female genitalia to try to prove a point. It's just ridiculous, and they think that that's building women up. It was just nothing but, it was ridiculous on steroids.
There's a lot of anger out there, and I think that was one manifestation of it. And one thing about religious circles that I find very encouraging is that that's where the joy is. And that's part of what I try to get across in my work.
Yeah, I in your section on the book in Primal Screams, where you talked about feminists and why they're so angry, when we come back after the break, I want to talk a little bit more about that, because it seems like we're making progress. But in reality, why is everybody so angry? That's not progress. And you touched on it, but I want to talk more about it when we come back right after these messages with Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Howdy folks, it's the County Line Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our hay-bossing breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at a salad bar, sink your teeth into our famous County Line burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon-rattling pie with a cum roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the County Line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering, it's the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. And we have with us sociologist Mary Eberstadt, and she's the author of her most recent book, Primal Screams: How the Sexual Revolution Created Identity Politics. We were talking about the feminist movement and that women have become more angry, less happy, that more of what we're doing doesn't seem to be working. And our host, Andrea, is joining us via Zoom from Florida, and she had a question she wanted to ask Mary.
Yes, thank you. So I was really intrigued by your thoughts on cancel culture and how we've reached this point today, and also the impact that it has on our society in general and on the family unit. Where do you see this going?
Well, I hope, and the reason I do this kind of work is that I hope to create a kind of shock of recognition out there on the part of people who have been wounded and who don't know the proper names for what's happened to them. And so, in case that sounds abstract, there's a lot of talk about how the problem out there is heteronormativity or other forms of oppression or the patriarchy, et cetera. And I'm trying to get away from those abstractions to say, that's not your problem. You are a victim, but you're not a victim of those things. You're a victim of the fact that families are smaller and weaker, and you're less likely to be going to church these days. And both of these things have weakened your sense of identity. And I think we see this very clearly in the case of the Me Too phenomenon. At one point, I sat down and I read hundreds of these accounts during the height of the Me Too movement. And it was really baffling because, you have a he said, she said, where what's being expressed is radically different by each party. And this got me thinking, one of the changes since the 1960s is that families are smaller, dads are not as likely to be in the home, kids are not as likely to have siblings, which I think is going to turn out to be a pretty major factor. It's barely beginning to be understood. So my theory about Me Too is that people are not learning about the opposite sex in the way that they used to. You know, it used to be you learned what men were like by having brothers or large extended families or fathers in the home. And conversely, you know, boys are growing up much less likely to be around siblings and extended family. And I think this has created a real social deficit, an educational deficit about the opposite sex. And again, it's this kind of deficit that drives people to embrace identity politics or aspects of them like feminism that seems to answer questions about who am I and what am I here for, but it's a false flag.
One of the things you said in your book about who am I, that we all want to know who we are, and the family unit would help people know who they are, and religion would too. And you said something that I thought was striking, that a poor medieval peasant could answer that question better than a lot of people today can.
Yes, because I think that's true. When we look around the world today, we see people, again, especially young people who are shouldering the cumulative burden of all these trends. You know, we see people who don't know what gender they are, don't know what sex they are confused about the most basic things that all the generations before us had no confusion about. So what does that tell us? It tells us that there's a real deficit of social learning out there. It tells us that people are growing up without very elementary human information. And I guess, given how radical the changes have been since the 1960s to the family and to society, the wonder isn't that that confusion is out there. The wonder would be if it weren't, if people weren't confused, given all the mixed messages that the culture sends, given that they don't have, in many cases, robust families backing them up and showing them the way.
And isn't it, in today's society, I was just thinking how much technology now has taken over that role of being that family, of the guidance and the belief system and all the things, depending on who they're plugging into on their computer or their phone or whoever, and the information they're being given. And there's not a lot to temper that when the families aren't strong to be able to bring a different viewpoint in.
Yes, I certainly agree. It's a very big problem. Technology can't substitute for these necessities. And it's sad to see so many people wishing that it could. You know, there's a vogue right now for something called chosen families. The idea being that if you like people enough, well, they can be your family. And it's not the way this works. I mean, people need those elementary connections. And when we think about how to go from here, how to heal from here, how to make the world a better place, I think those people who are fortunate enough to enjoy healthy families and healthy families of size need to be that substitute family for those people out there who don't have that. And that's really where the answer is.
They almost need more model families to turn to say, we don't know how to do this. We've never been around this kind of family structure kind of thing. That's where community could really help community, it sounds like.
And take people under your wing, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always think of a young woman I met on a campus once who told me that she was a Christian convert from a family with no religion. And I asked her what had brought her into the church. Why had she done this? And her answer really surprised me. She said, in high school, my best friend came from a large Christian family. And I found myself spending more and more time at her house because I wanted what they had. And that was such a powerful moment, her testimony to the effect that this is what people really want. And I think that's true. And I think we can console ourselves by realizing that we haven't really been living in this disrupted, broken way for all that long. I mean, 60 years seems like a long time, but in the course of human history, it isn't. And I think the hope is there that people will realize that these atomized ways of living, these substitute families and substitute religions of identity politics and the smartphone are just not doing the trick for them. And they need to go back to an older, richer form of wisdom about these things.
And didn't you say too that the suicide rate and the unhappiness is one thing for women, but I think for society as a whole, it seems like we're so fractured and just where that goes as far as, you know, the suicide rates, the drug culture, all the stuff that plays into that very thing, and it's the loneliness, isn't it? I mean, that's such a key factor. And not knowing who am I? Where do I fit?
Absolutely. Loneliness is a big part of the picture. And in fact, in sociology, the hottest growing area of study is something called loneliness studies. And if you Google loneliness studies, you will find them in every Western country, in every country that has been reshaped by the sexual revolution, in every country where families have been weakened and religious practice is in decline. So that, again, is something that I think is just beginning to sink in on people. But to me, it's analogous to the problem of, say, tobacco smoking. I don't say that to demonize smokers. I mean to say that, you know, there was alarm about this for a long time before people's habits changed. And I think analogously, given all of the empirical evidence about loneliness, about the rise in suicide that you mentioned, the rise in deaths of despair, sooner or later, I think that evidence will lean in on the public consciousness and result in a lot of rethinking. It's not there in the academy yet, but I think the day is coming because the empiricism is unavoidable.
And thank you for your work too. And we have up on the screen, if you want to learn more about Mary Eberstadt, her work and her books, I would highly recommend them. Thank you, Mary, for appearing on the show today and for doing the kind of work that you do, because I know it's not easy, it's not always upbeat, but the beginning of a solution is finding out what the problem is, right?
Right. Absolutely. So, we have to call things by their rightful names. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for being with us. We appreciate it.
And we'll be right back with Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Howdy, folks. It's a Caneline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Boss and Breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caneline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the game. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Coulter Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Back. Now we have Andrea with us. She couldn't fit her way in the studio very well because we had such a jam-packed day with guests with Coach Rod Miller and sociologist Mary Eberstadt. We
You
are
picked
already
great guests though, Patty.
Yeah,
I think we should add, tell our viewers about your dream last night.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I
please
did
do.
dream that these three had a meeting, an emergency meeting they had to go to, and I ended up monologuing for the whole show. So I'm grateful they're here.
Instead, we barely got you in, and so we're gonna do something fun. Look at some life hacks on what you can do with the amazing rubber band. And I want to let you know there are way more than what you're going to see. So you should look it up sometime, and then we'll hear what Andrea does with her rubber band. It's right after this little segment. That is just a fraction of what's out there. We also have some photos we'll go by very quickly, if they're ready. Yep. All these different things, hangers, so your clothes don't fall off the hanger. I do this all the time. I use it as a bookmark. You just happen to have a rubber band and paint. Apples, to stop your apples from getting brown. And to open a lid, I haven't tried this one, but supposedly you can get your lid taken off that way. And if you strip a screw,
I've done that.
Oh, and it works?
Yep,
Wow.
absolutely.
I had never thought of it before. And the broom,
That's a great idea.
And this is a different one. If you can't quite get your pants
I
buttoned.
did that when I was pregnant, actually. If you
Okay,
could still
wow.
wear your
COVID.
jeans. But, and it does work.
And Andrea, I'm going to have to save yours for you, but I didn't get anybody Christmas presents. So I got you bags of rubber bands, everybody, because I just know you're going to want to take your rubber bands home and use them. So what about you, Andrea? Do you have ideas for rubber bands?
Those are a hot commodity in my house too. I have tried some of those suggestions on your video clip, but usually ours get used for science projects as we homeschool. So we're always
Okay.
collecting them for that
Well,
purpose.
so when you're back in Bismarck.
So one suggestion for your kids for that science project, I've seen this on different videos where they just take a watermelon and you keep putting more and more rubber bands around it. Just keep adding the rubber bands, and before you know it, it will absolutely explode the watermelon.
Really?
Mary,
Fun
that
project.
sounds like a safety glasses required kind of project.
Who was that comedian that used to smash watermelons in his routine?
What was that?
What was
I
his
saw
name?
him in
was
Fargo.
I think Irish for some reason. I don't know why, but Gallagher. It was Gallagher.
Yeah, Gallagher.
Yeah.
I think I missed it.
I was just thinking too, back when my kids were smaller, we'd rubber bands and learn how to tie different knots with them. Make a chain of where you tie knots one to the other one, and I don't know, just weird things.
We used to do that. We would tie them together and we made what we called Chinese jump ropes. Did you ever do that? And two people would put their legs in it. You have to look it up because it's hard to explain, but if you want to know, look up Chinese jump ropes. And I used to often have them around my wrist to close bags of chips and, And
I have tried the one with the bookmarker. No.
Really?
I'm technology challenged, and my rubber bands wind up breaking every dang time. And I'm laying in bed, it's like, yeah, there we go again.
So this is kind of on the subject, off the subject. Years ago, when you think of something so simple, right? You wonder who patented it or when did all that happen. But years ago, the gentleman that invented the safety pin sold his patent for $25.
Oh dear.
But years ago, this was 100 or more years ago. You think about it, $25 would have been a lot of money. And it's like, if you fell into $25, you wonder, where all
we
that
should find out
history
who
is.
invented the rubber band,
The history
right?
of it, yes.
Yeah.
And sticky notes. And
sticky
paper
notes and
clips
all that
and,
stuff,
yeah.
The better idea. Andrea, real quickly, for your kids homeschooling, what we used to do as kids, we'd make a rubber ball just by winding rubber bands on top of each other. So with a minute to go, how is it in Florida, Andrea? We'd like to hear what kind of weather you're having and what we're missing out on.
It's pretty nice here. It's 73 and sunny.
That is nice.
I have no complaints whatsoever. I will say that I used my tax refund to buy the world's cheapest hot tub. It's inflatable. It was $600.
Wow.
I figure if the government's going to send me money, then I can be as irresponsible as they can.
I guess we can't argue with that. So, well, thank you for joining us today. Tomorrow we're going to have Jana Myrdal, who's a legislator, and she actually grew up in Norway. So she's going to talk a little bit about what it's like doing legislation in North Dakota now. So join us tomorrow with Ladies of Another View on Beck.